Hosa.
Yes, further, I remember that. Before that, back in the university, she had a magazine. It was a campus magazine. So then there was Akada Dynamics and all of this in Lagos, and then we had our own show love. So she has been an entrepreneur for a very long time, and he understands personal branding. In more recent days, he's had a persona called, is it FinTech Sabinos or Tech Sabinos? He's had that bit of identity, but so he understands it. He's been in the game, he's been in the business. He's like equipped to speak about this. So that's Seye and that's Ref Star. So we'll get into it. As we go along, if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. There'll be a section where we'll go over those questions and ask them. But I think that this conversation will cover a lot of things that we want to learn. Like I want to learn a lot of things as well. I'm seeing a lot of personal brand, I'm seeing stuff. I have questions myself, and I've documented some of them, and we'll just go over those things and try to have a nice chat together. So getting that out of the way, let's start. What even is this personal branding? So I say personal branding, like what does it even mean? Like what does it mean to you? What do you think it is? Or what's the context of this to you?
No, they never welcome me. If people not give me applause, I don't go talk.
Okay, problem. Can we welcome Seye properly? I beg, if you have dollars, you can spray it so that.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Yes, everything you said is true. I've known you for 19 years, thereabout. So yeah, to answer the question, personal. What was your question? Was it?
Like, what does this even mean? What is personal branding? What even is this thing?
Yeah. So I mean, for the longest time, I was against the idea of what's a personal brand. Why do you need to do personal branding and all of that? Until after a while in my entrepreneurial journey, I now realized how important it was and how much effort you need to put into it. So basically, a personal brand, there are two things. There are actually two different things. When you say personal brand and then personal branding, you actually mean two different things. Your personal brand is your widely accepted, widely recognized persona, what people know you for based on your expertise, your skill sets, things that you do, and within a particular community or industry, right? That's your personal brand, what has been accepted. But personal branding is the process, right? Your activity, everything that you do, both consciously and consciously and unconsciously, that is the process of shaping what people view you as or how people view you within the specific community or industry that you want to be viewed, right? So it's two different things. One is it can be derived or it can be assumed, and the other one is you properly engineering what you want people to perceive you as. So yes, thank you. Next question.
Interesting. So there's personal
very self-conscious the way people ping me here. Unping me, please.
Who pinned you? I need to be seeing you beside me so that so there's personal brand. I didn't even know you could see that. Okay. There's personal branding and there is personal brand. That's interesting. I didn't think of them in that light. So personal brand is the things that you do. Personal brand is what you've already portrayed, like what people see you as already.
I mean, the differentiation there, and the reason why I needed to point that out is that if you don't do it, if you don't deliberately do it, then
you already have something.
Yeah, right. It's just people are just going to assume it and move with that, especially if you are like a recognizable figure within the industry that you're operating.
Got it. So let's step back one bit. Is it a new concept? Does it come with the age we're in, the internet, social media? Does it come with all of that, or it's always been a thing, or has it evolved? Like how has it looked from time past?
Absolutely not. It's a concept as old as time from the way I see it, right? What was I talking to you yesterday about? Yeah, because people have engaged me on this topic even before now. Like, even if you go as far back as evolution, right? Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. Today, if I say Homo sapiens, right, people have an idea of what the Homo sapiens were versus Homo erectus, right? Or there were three: Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, and one other one I can't remember my university secondary school biology right now. But basically, what a man was in those days was the guy who does hunting and gathering, provides for family or provides for his own community or whatever. and then that starts to evolve into what the new age is now. So again, Homo habilis, thank you.
Olas.
Yeah. So Erectus was the first one, then habilis, and then sapiens. So it's just like I clarified earlier, the personal brand, for the Homo habilis or Homo erectus, the guys who maybe did not deliberately engineer what they wanted to be perceived as, we all know, we all derived a brand and a perception of that personality, and we all ran with it, right? And then as civilization came and everybody becomes more aware of your place in the world and the things that you do, then people now realize, oh, okay, I need to deliberately craft what people should view me as, especially in my chosen field. So it's not a new concept. I think what the internet does, and beyond just the concept of personal branding, I think what the internet does is that it allows people to be informed faster. So, concepts can go viral. That's why we have concepts of things like virality. So you realize that, oh, everybody is doing this now, I should participate in this, I should also do this. And then it looks like, oh, that's what people are doing now, or that's where the attention or the awareness is. Whereas it is just things that continue to exist or have been evolving over time until now.
Good. So that will take me to my next question. It seems like everybody's doing it now, and for some of us, it's like almost this stress. Like, why do I need to do all of this? Like, everybody's doing it now. That's more reason why I don't think I want to do it. Or is that more reason why you should do it? For example, a lot of founders and CEOs, you knew them, you read about them in papers, you knew of them, but now they are creating content. You see Elimelu, he has people following him around cameras. Yeah, $1 in, like, what is going on? Like, everybody's doing it. Should I be doing it as well? Or how do you see that how that is going? Like, yeah.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just existing naturally. So the reason why you have to control the narrative is that just like I said, if you don't do it, people will still define you, especially as you become recognizable in the field that you operate. There are many reasons why you need to do it. Number one is, first of all, just even differentiation, right? This is, I need people to know who I am. For instance, and I'll give you a personal example. The reason for my personality on Twitter is because how it started was that I didn't want to spend marketing budget. I didn't want to spend money on ads and doing all of this. So I'm going to start talking about my company and my founder experience in a way that I think many people can relate to. And then I now realized that, oh, people responded positively to this, so I doubled down, right? So the first use case was, I need to be visible. I need to be differentiated in a crowded audience, right? It's like you're in a market and you know how people are selling their wares, and then how it evolved over time. Somebody decides to start using a bell, or somebody's using a horn, and another person is using their voice, just to achieve that sort of differentiation in a crowded space is important. And the reason why people do it is that you need people to trust you, right? Again, depending on what kind of brand that you choose to adopt, right? You need some credibility in the market. You need people to be able to identify you, and identify you for a particular reason is why you need it. So, I mean, if you don't do it, it's fine. If you don't want to personally brand yourself, or brand yourself personally, whatever that means, it's fine. But when it comes to a time where, and just like I said, the bottom line is, when you need to be recognized, you need to sort out your personality. There are reasons for you to do it. So it's not a concept that is a trend or a fad like a TikTok trend. It's important for people who need to do it.
Right. So what I hear you say is, if you don't do it, it's done for you.
Yes.
And what is done for you, you may not like, or you may like it, like, but it's done. So
you may have no control over.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find an example that is unintentional. I don't know if it's unintentional, but let's say Daniel Rega, right? I don't think I think now it's intentional, right? Daniel Rega has sort of created himself into the guy who makes poverty look not so bad, right? Because everybody's going through it. And then he has owned that personality. So over time, it was just him showing up and talking about stuff and trying to say, okay, if you are going through this type of, and I had all this reaction stuff. Yeah, something like that. I'm people, this is recorded. I don't want somebody to cut the section of this thing and post it on Twitter. I beg. I'm not insulting Daniel Rega.
It's part of the personal branding thing.
So what I mean is you have no control over it. You can just continue to do something, and then people realize that, oh, okay, this is what this guy is now known for, versus when you intentionally curate it. Again, like I said, it's a bit superficial when you think about it. If you are just the kind of guy that likes to just exist, some people can say it's a superficial thing to do, but there are benefits, and then of course there are disadvantages as well.
Interesting. So it goes to my next question, which is around, for some people, it would be easier for them to do this thing because it looks like it requires a lot of putting yourself out there in some form. For people that don't like any form of attention, so you're a proper introvert. You don't even. So I'll give an example of myself. If I write an article on LinkedIn, which is usually my thoughts on marketing or something that I've thought about, I write it. Once I post it, I'm going to log out because I don't want to. I'm not writing so that I can comment and like it. That's not why I'm doing that. I just want to put my thoughts out there. So I'm not one for attention. So how does someone like me, who's an introvert, do personal branding? I don't even like to be on camera. Versus an introvert, are they more advantaged in this scenario? How do you balance it? How do you work with your personality to be the personal brand?
Let me think about that properly. So I hope I've not somehow communicated that a personal brand means you have to be popular. Yeah, I think it's easy to sort of get lost in that understanding and say, okay, because I'm trying to curate a personal brand, I need to be a public figure. It's not necessarily that. Although it's very easy to, because okay, at the end of the day, you are trying to control a certain type of perception about yourself. So I think your question is around introversion versus extroversion and creating a personal brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I answer your question? I'm thinking about this stuff real time. Okay, so this is me using 100% of my brain, or maybe 50%. Introversion and extroversion versus personal brand. So you create what works for you, right? And the example you gave around me writing an article and waiting for people to respond and stuff like that, it all goes into what you want your public perception to be. For instance, many people don't know, and whenever I say it, a lot of people don't believe me. Just like you said that you are an introvert, I'm also an introvert, right? And the reason why.
Wait. This is the way you talk. I don't agree. I'm 19 years.
You don't fall under
my and the party will not start. I can mention names yet. See, that is laughing. No, don't bring that. let's clear. So it's lies we don't want.
Whatever party you've seen me in, have you ever seen me stay in a party from beginning to end?
If you don't have to stay, but when you enter,
anyway. So the point I'm trying to make is that your personality kind of defines how you define who your personal brand, what your personal brand is, but it doesn't. Okay, sorry. Your personality helps you figure out what your personal brand is, but it doesn't necessarily define the how, right? And what I mean by that is that, back to your example, if I put out a comment, an article on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, and people are responding to it, there are people who, once they've dumped that thing there, they've disappeared, right? Which means I communicate, I project an image, and I leave you to decide whatever it is on your own side. Other people, like my guy here, Neto, that I can see, they are conversational, right? I put out that article and I want to hear your thoughts. I want to engage with you. I want to discuss. I want to hear your viewpoint. I want to provide a counter argument and things like that. the image that he's presenting in that sort of scenario is that I'm an approachable guy. I'm the kind of guy that you can even stop on the road and say, that thing you published on LinkedIn, these are my thoughts. I couldn't make a comment because I didn't have enough time to set the context. But now that I've met you, I'm able to approach you and have a conversation about that particular viewpoint. So depending on what your personality defines your personal brand to be, I think you can allow yourself to, I lost my train of thought. You can allow yourself to sort of just curate that brand for yourself. You get what I mean?
Cool, got it. So what I hear again is that your personality type has a strong role to play in what kind of brand that your personal brand. You can't avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to walk around it or walk with it. Interesting. That makes sense. My other question is around, so there's been conversations where people have personal brands. They are on LinkedIn or Twitter posting stuff. They are all over the place, but maybe they don't even have the substance for it. The people that know that this guy and Alamba now, this guy knows I be this thing way they talk. Why he can't they start like this? You know, and the people that do know it are more like, let me just do the work. I'm just here, dig my head into my work and do the work. How do you balance that? Like, do you have to consciously want to create stuff because opportunities are going to those people that are loud about their work, or does it even matter? These people that are loud and don't have substance, like people that know they know that this person did not do this thing, but is loud about it. How does that complete? Like, just be authentic with what you're putting out there as a brand.
Wait, your question is
for people that is bothered, is seeing people that don't have content. I mean, quality, substance, putting out stuff and being loud out there. And him, he has substance. He doesn't want to be seen in that light. So he's like, let me just avoid this noisy thing. Let me just do my work. Let people find me. What do you think? What do you suggest to those kinds of people?
Again, it's connected to how I said, if you don't deliberately engineer what people should perceive you as, other people will go and do it for you, especially if you are a person who is recognizable. So if you are the guy who has a lot of content or substance, as you called it, who never talks about anything, your personality has not allowed you to successfully create a brand that people can interpret or interact with, and then your quality is within you now, right? The people or the public who you may or may not want to interact with, they cannot find that substance or quality until they directly interact with you, right? You agree. Good.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you have this person who probably does not have enough substance, but is very, very vocal, right? He's visible. He talks about stuff. Depending on who or what his type of personality is, it probably allows conversation, and you can see physically that probably he's able to accept opposing opinions and change his own viewpoints and stuff like that. So it now becomes, who really is the guy who has substance versus who is this other guy that you say does not have substance, right? There's a saying. I see it on social media a lot. I'm trying to remember where exactly. It's something around you that you are smart. You are letting opportunities pass you by because this other person is too stupid to realize that he's not smart enough to be communicating the things he's communicating, or something like that. That's my interpretation of it. So authenticity is subjective because I don't think there's one person that has like monopoly over a particular subject, right? Everybody is learning curve. They are, as much as we all know that doctors are smart, they are still smarter doctors than other ones. Do you get what I mean? So I think it becomes subjective when people say this guy talks a lot about something that he doesn't really know much about. If you know much about it, then communicate it as such so that people see that you're an authority in that field. or people, trust you, and all of the benefits that we said is the reason why people do personal branding. You want to be separated from the competition. You want people to trust you. You want people to be, you want to advance in your career. But if those things don't matter to you and you found your way to go through life without necessarily curating a personal brand that people can interpret from afar without interacting with you directly, then that's fine too, right? But I used to be that guy who will see somebody talking a lot about stuff and deliberately maybe putting out articles or putting out videos and say, oh, but I sabi marketing past this guy now. This guy could just come, they talk about CAC versus LTV and say some basic shit about, hey, you guys, pardon my French, say some basic stuff about marketing, and me we sabi gone, me we don't be head of marketing of Conga. I know even the right article and stuff like that. Guess what? People are going to respect him, and he's going to become an authority in that field because he has chosen to curate the perception of the public towards him, right? So again, your personality may or may not allow you to create such a public brand. If it does, great. If it doesn't, just allow the people that know how to do it to continue doing it.
So yeah, the advantage.
Yeah.
The personality at some point. Okay, clear. So we'll get into the how, because we've spoken about like, is it important? What are the factors? All of those things. We'll get into how do you even do this thing for those that want to do it, that want to.
By the way, this is the kind of bougie lifestyle I live now. I tweeted about it recently that I'm now a sparkling water guy. I no longer drink Ragulis water. I'm curating a personal brand.
Nice, perfect. So if you can't afford sparkling water, you probably don't need to build a brand yet.
It's not expensive. What do you mean?
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. So before I go into the how, I'll talk about RevStar again, just because they're the ones that put this together.
Okay, so this is the advertising part of you. Go on.
So I'll plug in RevStar because Tayo is giving me by that from the corner there. So RevStar is a community of revenue professionals. So that's salespeople, marketing people, growth professionals, customer success as well, people that are in revenue roles. We come together to network, help each other out, be the community that they say just think sprites. Which one is sparkling water? And I agree, like, nah, bro. To come together
you guys are missing. Go on. Just go on.
To be the community where we like network, share opportunities, exchange knowledge, and learn from like brilliant minds. We have a lot of people that are really, really skilled in the community. You can connect with RevStar on Instagram at Revenue Leaders. You can connect us on Twitter at RevStar Community, RevStar.com. On LinkedIn is RevStar Community, and on YouTube is RevStar Community. Also, the website is there, RevStarCommunity.com. So let's go into how, because we've spoken about all of these things. I think people want to know. So now that you've said this, it makes sense. Opportunities will come. Somebody build it for you. You've said all of these things. How do I then do it? How do I build a personal brand? What do I need to do? Like today, right now, nobody knows me. I'm doing work. I like it. I see the idea. I see the potential that they can deliver, the opportunities that I can bring. But what do I need to do? How do I start?
Yeah. I think, since we're in a modern age, right, we can just keep the context to what the reality is now, instead of me, setting the story from back when we didn't know stuff, right? I think for people who have been opportune to go through like a brand strategy or the creation of a brand, and this is like a brand, like not a human being brand, like a product brand, it's pretty similar to creating a personal brand, right? One of the things that you first of all need to do or know is that you have to be able to introspect and identify yourself, right? The reality is that you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. There's nobody who is able to cater to all the audiences in the world, right? Elon Musk, who I like, I've seen a lot of people with very harsh criticism and vitriol towards the guy, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump, as unpopular as he may seem to many of us looking from the outside in, he won the goddamn elections in the US, right? Which means he was the popular guy on that side. So you need to first of all be able to realize Yes, ICP identification don't follow us with you again.
I don't tire.
You need to realize that, okay, who is my audience? Who am I? Who are the people that I want to speak to, or who are the people that I want to present myself to? For instance, as jovial as I am and playful as I am on Twitter, I suddenly developed haters. I don't know how.
You don't know.
Right? I'll just write like a random, like harmless thing. And one guy came and said, you guys tweet irrelevant stuff all the time. What a dumb bunch. Like, Jesus.
So from where to where?
What did I do, bro? So that reality helps you know that I belong to everybody, but I belong to nobody. I have the people I'm speaking to, right? The second thing you need to do is, which is basically just an extension of the first step, is once I define who I am and this is who I want to be, then you also need to understand your audience. Who are you speaking to, right? The brand, so to speak, that I've built for myself right now, is to speak to, while also, there's a commercial upside to the brand that I'm creating, right? It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. The commercial upside is that I'm trying to get everybody to sign up to PaidHR, right? So there is like probably
before you finish this thing.
So what?
You just plug your company. I say Meta your send invoice.
Anyway.
Say it. Say it.
Anyway, so there's a commercial upside, and I know that some way, somehow, everything I'm doing is to create visibility for either myself or my company in people who are potential subscribers to my product, right? The second, or depending on where you're looking from, either if you are looking at it from a personal branding point of view, it to become the primary audience, right? The primary audience is people who are like me, right? People who are building something, need to get it out there. I'm trying to share my experience because that aligns with the values or the ethics of the brand that I'm building. I like to share my experience. I like people to sort of not run into the obstacles that I ran into. So I curate my experiences into relatable content that people within my own type of target group, whether I'm ahead of them or they are ahead of me, can relate with, right? So I know my audience. I know the people I'm speaking to, which means that in any type of communication that I'm doing, if I find somebody who doesn't match any of those characteristics of what I consider my audience to be, I don't give them any time of day. I don't respond to them, or it's just like a distraction, right? So once I figure out my audience, right, then you craft your messaging. Now, again, because the possibilities of a personal brand are infinite, right? Is it infinite or infinite? Whatever. There's no specific definition of what your messaging can be. Sidebar. There are people like OnlyFans creators, for instance, right? An OnlyFans creator, when they determine their messaging, right, they know who they are speaking to because they are building a brand too. So don't get it confused. There is no limitation on the type of messaging that you can come up with. But let's keep it G, right? Let's keep it PG. Let's stay within what we're talking about. What's OnlyFans? You'll find out. You'll find out. I'll do an expose on OnlyFans before we leave. So, and the reason why I said that background before going into what your messaging can be is that I don't want to close people's minds to, oh, this is the only way to create messaging for the type of brand you're trying to build. It can be anything, right? Like me, for example, speaking from my own experience, my content is tweets, my experiences, understanding the characteristics of my content as well, or my messaging. It is important that my messaging is relatable. You see sometimes I tweet in Yoruba. I know it's deliberate. I know that not everybody understands Yoruba on Twitter or wherever I'm putting out that communication. You are carrying me to a place I don't know. Let's stay here, right?
Don't move on.
So because there could be different sections of your audience who can relate to the different types of messaging that you are putting out, you can have different content formats, right? On Instagram, for instance, recently I started to put out one video every week talking about my experience in building a business in Nigeria or a business in Africa, right? So in there, I'm a little bit more formal. I don't speak any pidgin. I'm speaking like as formally as possible, but in a friendly tone. On Twitter, I'm unhinged, right? I will joke with you. If you insult me, I'll insult you back. That sort of thing. On LinkedIn, which I used to do back in the day, I'm 100% formal. I'm not friendly at all. I'm telling you, I'm more authoritative, more, like matter of fact on that type of channel. And then I'll go into channels. So determine what your messaging is, like a proper 360-degree type of messaging that you can be consistent with, right? And yeah, maybe this goes back to something you asked before. It is important that in determining your messaging, don't commit to something that is unnatural to you. It kind of segues into your earlier question about being an introvert or an extrovert, because both of them can create a personal brand. So if you initially commit to something that is difficult for you to keep up with, then the brand that you're trying to create will just die, right? Because consistency is key in the messaging, right? So that's that for messaging. Then you choose your channels, right? Where do I want to be seen, or on what channel do I want to be known for? Okay, I'll give this example later. Choose your channels, right? In today's age, the easiest channels to choose are online channels. There are guys like I don't know how to pronounce his name, Semudara. He does like tech videos. He has enough bandwidth to appear on every channel. He's on LinkedIn, he's on TikTok, he's on Snapchat, he's on Instagram, he's on Twitter, he's on whatever the fuck else I don't know. There are people like that. But if you don't have the bandwidth, and especially because me, I have a day job, I just have like, wow, that sounded like a sub to him. I beg. I'm not subbing him.
I let you go. I heard you, but like, okay.
I'm not subbing him, right? So I just choose a specific amount of channels that I know that I have control over and I can consistently appear on. And then I now go back to deliver all the things that I've said from the beginning. Know my audience, determine my messaging, choose my channels, and I'm consistent on those guys. Next question.
You've said a lot. So what I hear you say is the first thing is to identify yourself. So reflect, like, what am I trying to do here? What's my personal brand? Then your audience, who am I speaking to? That will determine the message that you want to put out. And that message also ties to who you are. So some people will be comfortable sharing personal experiences. Some is just professional stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that goes into who you are and who you're speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing is the channels. So identifying what channels you want to push the content out to.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So is there a benefit? So it's bandwidth. If you can do multiple, then it's good. If you can't, stick with the ones that you think can be consistent.
Yeah, just choose what you can be most consistent at. One of the silliest things to do when you're building a brand, whether personal or non-personal, is to not be consistent with your communication, right? You all know we're in a digital age. Attention spans are dwindling. People have only 8 seconds to consume your content. So if you commit to a particular type of schedule in terms of communication and you can't stick to it, then all that effort is just wasted. And this thing is like work, right? It's like a job. I mean, the reality is you can craft it or design it in a way that it is not so demanding for you. But at the end of the day, it still takes some effort. It still takes some thinking. Especially if you, for instance, want to deceive people, forgive the term, deceive people into believing a brand that is not really you. which is also okay. Which is, I'm trying to communicate that you can be an introvert. I was trying to make the point earlier, but you cut me short. You can be an introvert or semi-introvert in real life, but very extroverted online, because that's the brand you want them to believe, whatever the reasons for that are. What just needs to go into that is for how long can you keep it up? Can you keep it up forever? Or are you going to fail? Is your personality going to take over at some point and say, you know what, this thing, I beg, I'm tired? It's all really up to you. There's no right way or wrong way. You can project an image of being friendly and being approachable, whereas in real life, you don't really want to talk to anybody, right? All of those things are possible within the confines of personal branding. It's just what you are able to be consistent at over a long-term period.
Man, consistency, that's the real that's the real devil. Okay. I think it makes sense. And I think that people may already start to have questions from what we've said so far. If you have any questions, please drop it in the chat. I will go there periodically just to look at the questions and read them out. So it makes sense. We've gone through like personal brand is how important is it, what even is it, and then how to do it. I have a different set of questions to ask, and it's around. So you said how to do this thing. I like it. It makes sense. It looks like a lot of things can happen with it. And you've told me that once I know myself, know my audience, understand the message and the channels, I can start to do this thing on a consistent basis. So there are two sides. For you as an entrepreneur, a founder, it's almost easy. It makes sense because like you're studying your market, there's a commercial value to it, there's all of that, not a lot at stake. Now, looking at an employee that is doing the same thing, depending on who your boss is, it might be a problem. So it's two sides. One is how should the employees think about this, that it doesn't conflict with the work that they're paid to do, and doesn't it doesn't position them as trying to leave the company or whatever it is. And on the other side, for founders, how should they think about this when the employees are putting themselves out there on a consistent basis with work and all of that? How do you balance those two things? So I think we have a mix of those types of people in the audience, employees and founders or owners of businesses.
Oh, wow, your question, you get plenty belly.
It's the thing. This topic where you pick, Baba Yad.
I didn't pick any question. I didn't pick any topic. Anyway, if my employee, and the easiest way to relate to questions is to just apply it to my personal life, right? If my employee wants to create a personal brand, yeah. So let me tell a small story, or just do a small segue. Personally, I think there are two types of people. There are inspired people and the uninspired, right? And don't judge me yet on calling somebody uninspired. It's okay to be both. It doesn't really matter. But the characteristics of both is inspired people want to create value. They want to be the system. They are the guys who want to fix problems. They are the guys who have jobs but still have to create personal branding because they are trying to solve towards a particular solution in the future or whatever. And then there are the others who don't really care for all that shit, right? They just want to exist in a system. They just want to exist in a system, contribute their quota, get their benefits from being that way, and move on to doing something else. It's okay to be both. There's no right or wrong, just like I said. So, speaking from an employee perspective, if you are the guy who is, man, I'm at this job, I'm going to give this job my best, but I know that it's temporary because I'm inspired to go and do something else. You can give your effort as much as you can, but we all know that you are not giving that thing your 100% effort. And again, it's okay. So you have to, at some point, be able to tell yourself the truth and say, okay, I'm going to do as much as I can up until this point before I go and face my own inspiration. Do you get me? Right?
Yeah.
So in that moment, depending on the kind of employer-employee dynamic that exists in such a situation, your employer can know that I support your dream. I know I want you to be able to go and be this person, but while you are here, please deliver 100% focus and stuff like that. So while you're doing all of your stuff and doing your personal branding and all of that, ensure that it doesn't really affect the commitments that you already have. Remember, based on the type of employer-employee dynamic that you have, if you know that person supports you, just do it in a way that it doesn't become injurious to what your current responsibilities are. Do you get me? Now, as an employer, how do I view people who want to create a personal brand as an employee? Is that the question?
Yes.
How can somebody over? Okay, I'll come to that.
Yeah, we'll come to that. I said it's
yeah.
Question.
Again, like I said, if all of those things, all the prerequisites are satisfied, and you know that okay, I know this person is too valuable or too inspired for me to continue to manage over a period of time, you can support it as much as you want, right? You can even help them. You can even help them create their personal brand and all of that, as long as it doesn't affect what the immediate responsibilities are. I personally don't have a problem with it, I'll be honest, because I know that, like I said, there are inspired people and guys who just want to, man, I'm okay to do this. I'm okay to commit myself to this vision and trust this enough to deliver my personal goals to me. Yeah, so that's how I feel about it. I feel like there's a part of your question I've not answered, and I just need you to clarify it.
So you, on the employee side, you've said that as long as it doesn't affect their current responsibilities, then it should be fine, right? But is there a way that, so for example, if I'm posting content about marketing, do I need to post about my work and try to amplify that, or I just need to post about marketing overall and talk about the things that I know, or things that I position myself? Doesn't it be linked to my work? Does that make sense? Or
employers don't really have control over what a person who works at your organization does with their own personal channels, right? Like I said, the person may be inspired to go and do something else, and they are just doing a job right now, and they are good enough to remain at that job over a determined period. So you don't really have control over that, right? It's, like I said, once you understand that, this person, you know, at some point, I welcome the reality that they will have to go and focus on this thing. I don't think employers should be too worried about that. The only time it becomes a problem is if this inspiration that the person has is becoming injurious to your own like commitments or agreements with the person. That's when it becomes a problem. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that somebody is, say, head of product at a company, but is building a music label persona online that is going to go and be at some point in the future. Do you get me?
Makes sense. Okay, let's go into these two questions that we have. And the first one is, how can one overcome self-doubt and confidently position themselves? And this is a good question, because usually when you do stuff, there's a point where you're like, do I even know this thing? If I talk about this thing, they will not come and claim me and say, guy, I say nonsense. Like, how do you?
I promise you that's a reality. That happens a lot, even for people who you think are very accomplished, right? And they are communicating from their own position of authority and experience, and you are looking at them like, this guy is a god in this field. But guess what? The guy, even before he communicates that thing, he's like, what if somebody checks me? What if somebody says, you are talking about how to build a fintech company, but there have been three hacking attacks on your company, and you could not take care of, and things like that. So it is a reality, and that's why there are talks about imposter syndrome and how to overcome imposter syndrome and things like that. But at the end of the day, just like in business, everything has cost and benefit, right? And the moment you are able to get yourself to the point where the benefits sort of outweigh the cost, then you sort of have conviction to go ahead with what it is you want to do. So to answer the question is an introspective thing, right? Self-doubt is a devil, we understand, but you have to overcome it. It's a personal battle. It's a personal battle between you and your doubts to be able to say, I think I have enough context to be able to share my insights on this particular topic. And I already understand via the audience that I've chosen and the channels that I've chosen and the kind of messaging that I've determined to create. I already understand that if, for instance, I've chosen to be a conversational character via my brand, if somebody comes with a differing opinion, am I available to have those conversations? Or do I want to be the kind of guy that this is my experience, this is my opinion, I don't care what yours is, I'm really just sharing my own opinion. So once you have those conversations with yourself and you are able to at least agree that that is who I'm going to be, then I think that confidence begins to build and you say, oh, okay, well, I respect your opinion, but I'm sharing mine. When you're ready, go and share yours on your platform. Or thank you very much for that submission. I shared this from my own perspective and I welcome your own experience. How do you think we can agree on a common ground or a common viewpoint? I think those are the ways that you can overcome self-doubt.
I would add to that. One of the things that when I started writing initially, one of the things that I did was realize that, I don't know it all. I'm putting this out there as my thoughts. If somebody has a contrary opinion or something different, I would read it or learn from that and have that conversation. I'm not putting there because I'm the master and authority on it. I'm putting there because this is my own thoughts. So if you respond and you have a different opinion, we'll talk about it and I can change my perspective based on what you said. So knowing that nobody knows everything, just realizing that everybody just putting out what they think they know, it will give you some comfort. So don't delay, just put it out there. Then she's asking.
And it's also okay to be a master of knowledge. It's okay. If you're a rocket scientist and there are only 5 rocket scientists in the world,
I want to check you.
You're an authority, right?
Yeah, but yeah, fair. So the other one is, how do you balance sharing personal insights and professional achievements without coming across as self-promotional? So yeah, this one is interesting because there's one side of this person just they talk lamba, you don't know what they do. It's all lies. And there's a point of I'm doing the work, there's quality, but I might blowing my trumpet too much. Is it like, how do you balance that? And or is there need to even balance it, or just do it, man?
Again, as in one of the things that are very important, these things that I've mentioned prior to us getting to this point in this conversation, if they don't exist, right? If, for instance, you haven't identified what your persona is going to be, if you haven't, and it's basically being formed by your experience of creating that brand, then it becomes a problem, right? Because there's nothing to anchor what your experience as you are creating that brand is. I hope you understand me. If you have if you don't define like for instance, let me use a binary example. I'm either going to be authoritative and instructive, or I'm going to be conversational and approachable. I'm going to choose one of those two options to be, right? If you've chosen, and there are people who have done it and done both of them successfully, so there's no right or wrong, right? So if you are the authoritative guy who says, one of the things that annoys me, and okay, you know what, let me not bias you by saying it annoys me. I've seen people who will come and say, the best way to create a company is to do X, Y, and Z, right? He's saying that thing from his personal experience because he has probably created a successful company by using those insights or using that kind of behavior or knowledge. So he says the best way to do this is to do it my way. And he comes and he shares what is a personal insight to him because he did that. And then somebody else is observing that communication and is like, that's actually not the best way. I think there are better ways. So he goes, let's say the person decides to be confrontational and say, I think you are being presumptuous, or you are delivering a zero-sum argument by saying this is the best way, because there are other people who have also built successful companies or successful things by doing it this other way. And the guy is like, well, time will tell, right? I think those companies are still going to fail. That's the guy who has chosen to be authoritative, right?
I know someone like that.
And then there are the other guys who are like, okay, yeah. I think one of the best ways to build a company is to do X, Y, and Z personal insights, right? And then other people are like, oh yeah, that's great, but here are the problems in your insights, and here are these other problems. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you for that, right? So it all goes back to what you decide your personal brand is going to be, right? But to answer the question exactly about without coming across as overly self-promotional, I think the general answer is still going to be around pick a struggle, right? Which one do you want to be, right? And I apologize, Bukayo, right? If in case it sounds a bit derogatory, it's just basically like me, for instance. I'll tell you something that happened today. Last night, I was making a lot of jokes on Twitter, right? Yes, exactly, right? Personal branding is self-promotion. So yeah, it is what it is. I was making a lot of jokes and talking about stuff and things like that. I think I posted a picture of my office downstairs, and somebody said, there's a standing fan in this office. It's unlikely that these people will be able to pay salaries on time. And I was like, what? And then, it was a whole thread though. This guy started yapping like, make I apply for vacancy for this place where they put extension on top table and stuff like that. Then the guy replied and said,
your personal brand,
like place where with the old salary. So I was like, okay. So I think these people don't know that I have an actual company. So I posted our year in review report from last year that showed that we processed 29 billion naira in salaries. Guess what? In the process of doing that, I saw another tweet from another founder, and his words were, are we processing billions? Yes. Do you see me shouting about it?
Yeah,
no.
I saw that tweet.
Right. So if we draw the lines, it could be that guy is like, this guy is sharing personal achievements and he's being self-promotional, whereas we are also doing this thing and probably doing even better than him. You get what I mean? So at the end of the day, you will self-promote. You will share personal insights and you will come across as self-promotional, but it all boils down to what is the brand that you're trying to create anyway.
Man, one thing that has come across is like, in this one, somebody that you've not smiled so far in this conversation. So just mentioning that. I think it's sparkling water. It's that's what
or Camilla. No, now when I remember say person talk, say me at the old salary, me that I've never owed salary before, but the old almost 60 months.
One thing that has come across is you need some level of thick skin to do this thing, because people where you know even consider they will come at you for whatever reason. So you need a level of that.
I don't think there's anybody who has created a public profile for themselves who does not welcome the idea of creating thick skin, especially to criticism. Some people do crash out, right? There are people who can't take it. Some of them, but I don't want to mention names. Don't quote me. There are people who, it may not even necessarily be an attack of their work. It may just be some type of criticism, and then they just lose it. Like, you guys have never created anything before. All you know is to poke criticism at people that are doing stuff and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that the brand they are creating has been destroyed. It's just that we now know.
It's not part of the brand, actually.
Exactly. It's just that we now know. And you that does not want wahala, you just observe and move on. Right? But other people who are okay to take it, right? Me, I think I'm okay to take it, but I also think it's because I've not seen wicked criticism before. Yeah, I feel like there's something you say to me that I will lose it as well. Like, God will punish you. What have you done in your life? That sort of thing. So it all depends.
So there's levels to this thing. Seye, you raise your hand. You want to ask a question?
No. I wanted to say that if the whole essence of building a personal brand, according to what Shaya said, is promoting yourself, right? And so if the opposite of it, if by not doing it, you don't promote yourself, then how does that benefit you? Right. So, and this is to the question in the chat here. As someone who has avoided self-promotion for the longest time, I can tell you that the downsides of it is deeper than the effect of any criticism that you get. So if you had the chance, if you had to decide between doing it and not doing it, I always do it.
Makes sense.
Did you ask me a question? Sorry, I was doing CX work just now. Tell me.
No, we didn't ask you a
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about how to. Now, another question is, so you have a day job, right, which you're supposed to deliver. You have a commitment, you have family, you have responsibilities. How do you find the time to do this goddamn thing? It's work. Like, you have to think of the content to create, time to put it out there. Like, how do you do that in the same 24 hours? And you have to do actual work that time is not even enough for. How do you find the time to do it?
Like I said, the moment you set out to build a personal brand for yourself, you need to think about the practicality of it. And depending on what your life demands, design it as low effort as possible, right? In some scenarios, your personal brand is all of your work, to be honest. There's a girl called Nora Awolowo. She recently directed a film called Baby Farm. I've followed her for maybe 2 or 3 years. That was her life, right? She always communicated the fact that she's going to direct a movie one day. And everything that she did was leading up to that point, right? So she would talk, everything she talked about was filmmaking, cameras, shooting, doing short videos, and then consistently up until the point where she's directed an entire Netflix movie, right? So there are people who your personal brand is your life. There are other people who, like me, who, apart from the fact that I have a job, I also curate a brand, right? So for me, especially given that my work is also very, very demanding, I have to design the curation, that process, the branding of it to be as low touch, low effort, naturally occurring to me as possible. I've had people ask me, Ashe, how do you find time to tweet so much while doing your work? I'm unable to do it. Many founders. Yeah, I always find it a little bit insulting. Like, what do you mean? Well, I went and I checked that period, and I realized that I did an average of 9 tweets per day. It takes me a total, let's say I think about a tweet for 5 minutes before I tweet it. That's 45 minutes in my entire day on Twitter, or, to come up with tweets. That's the effort that goes into it. Whereas this is me that works sometimes 18 hours a day, right? So 18 hours minus 45 minutes is not the end of the world, right? And that's because I've designed it to be something that occurs to me so naturally. I just tweet my thoughts, right? It's just basically, I think about something, I write it down. I think about something, I write it down. Other things are higher effort. If I want to write an article, if I want to attend an event, if I want to do a video, right? Some of them are higher effort. And the reason why I've now got into those parts of this personal branding journey is because the initial part has been successful, right? Otherwise, I would have just forgotten about it. So you need to be sure that unless where the personal brand that you are trying to create is what is actually going to put food on your table, you must design the process of it to be very low effort, very naturally occurring, so that you are not taking out of what is putting food on your table, at least in that moment, to be feeding this other thing that you need to create.
Now it sounds like work, because now I have to design.
But that's exactly what I said. Now I said you should design it in a way that is not work.
So maybe because, for example, you're active on Twitter. Twitter is easy. carry your phone, post, and that fits into your lifestyle. For people that are not active on Twitter, for example, they are more active on Instagram, where it's video, it's face, but it doesn't fit into their work. They are customer success people. They are on the call. They are behind the scene. How do they then do it? How do you suggest that they find how to integrate it?
The question you're asking me suggests that the person who is trying to create that brand is not being very intentional about it. And that's everything I've said from the beginning, that you have to be intentional. You have to design it from the beginning, right? You have to know what it is that you want to do. If you're a customer support person who needs to spend 20 hours talking to customers, you need to find a way to craft something, especially because we are being intentional about it. And I apologize by kind of disregarding when you said it is work. It is work, right? But the success of it goes into how you design it to not be so tasking, right? Let me find a completely different example in my head. If your personal brand, just hold on one second. If your personal brand is to post funny TikTok videos, right? I have a future in skit making, right? And I have a job. I'm still doing customer success. You must be able, patience, just hold on, have some patience. Exactly. You must find a way to design that thing, because we're solving for consistency. You don't want to design a process that is so high effort that to be consistent at it now takes away from what you would normally do naturally. Is a delicate balance. You need to find a way to do it, because it is from that consistency that you will see the success in creating the brand that you want to create, that then rewards your effort. So if you go and design something where you need to rent a camera, for instance, you need to get a cameraman, you need to find an editor and things like that, it becomes your job. And unless that is your plan, which is what my initial example was, you're doing yourself a disservice, right?
So you need to basically integrate it into your existing lifestyle as much as possible. That's how it's easy. So if you're active on a certain channel, you have to look for how to create it on that platform, because you're always there anyways. So you have to look for how to integrate it in there. That's interesting. There's been questions, and Patience, do you want to go? Because you raised your hand. I think that seems very urgent.
Yeah, yes, please. I want to go. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for sharing. So the reason why I raised my hands was because I'm also a customer success person, and it felt like the feedback was directed to me. Nice. So yes, I put out content on Twitter. So I just make Twitter every day, like one post. So when Shere said it makes 9, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But I just do one tweet a day. For LinkedIn, I post like once a week. And then the part where Shere said you need to first be successful one is very true, because I just started posting on Instagram and it's been a lot. Even trying to do a 30 days posting video. So what I do is I batch create, and then I just find a schedule to work with, because I work in customer success and I talk to customers for hours. So it's really not easy, but you just find a way around it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. Again, just to respond to that, you need to know what works for you, right? For instance, I don't like to batch create because I think it takes away a little bit from my authenticity, and I prefer to be more, off the cuff, that sort of thing. So again, it just has to work out for you. Just remember the 5 tenets. Who is my audience? Who do I want to be? Who is my audience? What is my messaging? What are my channels? Exactly. And then, you can now decide to monitor and reinvent as you see what the responses and rewards are.
Cool. There's this question that came earlier, and I don't want to skip it. It's from Idona. She says, how do you create a personal brand in a field when you're relatively known in another, when you're switching careers or fields? So for example, you are a customer success person and you want to position as a product person. How do you create a personal brand in that new field? Do you have anything to suggest?
Remember, I think a good personal brand. I remember I was a bit liberal initially when you spoke about authenticity and fluff, but to be honest with ourselves here, a good personal brand comes from a place of authenticity, right? That's the only way it becomes sustainable over time. Fluff would get you so far until where it can no longer get you, take you forward anymore. My advice in such scenario is to spend some effort initially building the authenticity, so that when you do create this personality and messaging and the consistency of it is coming from a place of authority, so to speak, right? At the moment of building a career, because as much as we say things like people's attention is dwindling, there's so many things competing for your attention now and so on and so forth, you know, the world is really not going anywhere. There's only so much we can do while all of us are here. So I think you can take the time to switch and switch properly, except where the personality or brand that you are creating is independent of these fields. If you are creating a personal brand in the field of in the example you made, you are moving from customer success to products, and you want to create a personal brand as a product person, that's the content, the substance of that should come from your experiences as a product person. You get what I mean? So I would take the time to first of all establish myself in that field a little bit before I now decide to start to project the image of somebody who can be seen as an authority in that field.
So, and it makes sense. And I have a
You're supposed to tell me thank you first now. You just say so like as if you know what I said.
they don't clap for you. I need they don't clap for you. Are you okay now?
Yes.
So I think that, and this is an experiment, like, I mean, you just listen to it carefully. So you are a customer success person and you want to position in products. I think that you can position as someone that is learning products and create and put content out, not an expert, and just share your learnings. And that starts to put you in that light, and people start to see that, oh, this person actually knows one or two things from there. That is one way. Pending when you get into the field and start to have your own actual experiences, I think that sharing your learnings or your thoughts on product stuff can be a way to start. And I've seen this happen before with some people, and it's worked for them. For example, somebody that was working in customer service and wanted to pivot to another career somewhere else. I've done training, I've done all of those things, and started posting stuff on that field on LinkedIn very actively. And it was easier for him to move into that because of that. So it might be a way, but it'll take time. You need to really know it and be confident with it.
I agree with you.
Cool. We're almost done. We have like maybe one more set of questions, then I'll go into Q&A if anybody else has questions to ask. But while we're here,
Thank you very much.
Huh?
She said thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. I'll plug in RevStar again because why not? RevStar is a community of revenue professionals. So you're in sales, marketing, customer success, and you need a community to grow, thrive, connect, learn. Please join RevStar. We are at RevStar.com on Twitter. I'm trying to read from my head now. Revenue Leaders on Instagram, and there's a website. You would learn a lot and meet a lot of people and progress in your career. Cool, that's out of the way. So when creating content, when building this brand, how do you determine what is enough? So we've seen people post stuff and we're like, is that not too much? Like, are you supposed to be sharing this as it beats to? So you've seen that you've posted one thing, it's interesting, people like it, they're engaging, and then you go a little further, maybe you post a picture of your kids and you go a bit further. It's tempting. How do you set those boundaries of, now this should not be done, this should be done? How do you balance that? What is this pause?
I like to think about stuff. For instance, you guys know this this video guy that has been trending online, the Ashton Hall guy, the guy that wakes up and puts his face in eyes.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. Yes,
stuff like that. At the end of the day, right? If you are creating a public profile, there's no, I mean, as long as even morality itself is subjective. As long as you're, because I wanted to say, as long as you're operating within the confines of morality, there's people who's going to love what you're sharing, and there's people who's going to hate it, right? Aston Hall, for instance, I have nothing against him, right? But who knows where he started from? He's 9 million followers on Instagram now. I don't know what he was doing when he was 500 followers. You get what I mean? So it may have started from him just waking up and, you know, showing himself going to work and doing his work and stuff. And then he started to develop, and the audience is asking for more and more and more, and he's sharing more and more. And now people find it, all of a sudden, he's falling into this part of the internet where people find it a little bit creepy that he's sharing all that stuff, right? So, you know, I think as long as you're operating within the confines of morality of the society that you are communicating with, it is left for you to determine, right? If I was a guy who was sharing stuff about my work, for instance, and I'm talking about my work and, you know, what is like every day as a content creator or as a social media manager at the X company, and then I share my video of how I went to work that day and how I came back to my house and all of that, and the next day somebody leaves a comment and say, I want to see what it's like when you're talking with your colleagues, and all of a sudden your colleague's face has to make it into your video and stuff like that.
Voila.
Yeah. Other colleagues in other organizations can come, and their reaction to that type of content can be, oh my God, I'll be so heated if I had a content creator colleague who decides to put a camera in my face one day, right? Whereas that thing was something that was requested by another part of your audience, right? So, I mean, whatever your values are, me, for instance, it's very difficult for you to see me share photos of my kids. No matter how I talk about my wife a lot, I write tweets about my wife, but only few people can make the connection from that communication to who my wife actually is, right? So it depends on your values as the person who is creating the brand, what you think is okay and what you think is not, because I don't think your audience can really determine it. People will always have different types of reactions to what it is that you're communicating with them.
So you have to be the one to determine what is enough and what the boundary is.
Yeah. Cubana chief priest. He shares videos of his family, right? He shares videos of himself kissing his son on the lips, which I found weird, right? Like, do they do this one too? What message is this? Right? There's a guy called Kata Efe who recently shared a video of his daughter playing with his chest, and he was making some funny movements and stuff like that. And there was a whole part of the internet who were incensed by that, right? And he's like, bro, that thing does not mean anything. That's how me and my kid play. So what really is the response of the public to that sort of communication? It all depends on you and what you're comfortable to share.
Makes sense. Okay. My next question is, when you post stuff, so you've been posting content for a while, there are some that, you know, that this one is a banger. Instablog even carried it. There are some that, you know, that this thing made it.
Are you talking about me personally, or is this like a hypothetical?
Use an example, but generally, I mean, with you, we've seen a couple of your tweets that made it in Instablog and TikTok, and, you know.
I'm so ashamed.
So the question is, do you track which of your content is blowing and create more of those, or it's just like, I'm just freestyling? Are you analytical about the content that you create and try to create more of the ones that work? How do you work on that?
I mean,
what do you recommend people to do?
Good question. If you study the psychology of social media and what it does to your brain as you are a creator who continues to share, and I know that the conversation has sort of just devolved into what you share on social media as a big part of your personal brand, but you guys should just allow it. So back to what I was saying, the concept, the psychology of social media is that, you know, I mean, not all of it. Part of it is that it creates secretions of dopamine in your brain, and you want you sort of start to crave that attention, crave that reactions and likes and stuff like that. And it's okay to feel that way because everybody is human. You're not more human than another person. You can have more control over your sensibilities than others, but at the end of the day, all of us are human. So it becomes very easy to get lost in thinking that the success of your communication lies inside of those reactions and the notifications and the things that you're getting from the responses of the internet citizens. The reality is that it's neither here nor there. It just depends on what you want. I, for instance, I've always written funny tweets from as far back as 2011 when I joined Twitter. In fact, before now, I used to say that my Twitter is for my own entertainment because I really crack myself up inside my house. I'm like, I think of stuff and I'm like, oh my God.
Only that.
You're a very stupid boy, right? So it then happens that, I mean, up until like, I think 2021 or 2022, I think I had less than 1,000 followers on Twitter. So
I think they banned you for some reason because you were dropping bangers and they just were not giving you followers.
I don't know. I just never blew. So shit, stop interrupting me. I personally, I wasn't doing it initially. Let me arrange my thoughts. I wasn't really doing it for the response. I wasn't doing it to attract followers or to create a personal brand initially, right? Before it was just me making myself laugh in a public forum. That was basically what it is. But then along the line, I now became the founder of a company and happened to be the founder of a company who couldn't raise money at the time that there was a funding glut in the market. So what that meant was that I didn't have money to do Twitter ads and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, what are the things that are available to me for me to be able to create some type of audience or awareness for the company that I was building? And that was one of them. So I now found use for the funny tweets, right? And the relatable experiences, and then talk about my company as well. And then even talk about the process of building the company in a way that is relatable to a lot of people, right? So initially it was, I didn't really care how many people responded or commented or views and things like that until I found an actual use for it, right? And that can be the story of anybody as well. Today, you might decide that I want to be, I like to write stuff. I like to document my thoughts about AI, or I want to talk about what the future of work is going to be. And I'm just documenting those things because maybe at some point in the future, I want to be able to come back to a repository of my thoughts and say, oh, okay, this is how I felt 10 years ago and stuff like that. And then as time goes on, you now realize that, oh, wow, I've suddenly found a corner of the internet where my thoughts are appreciated. And then that now encourages you to do more, right? So I guess the answer to your question is that the source of your inspiration is in it, right? I mean, what I think is the best way to do it. The source of your inspiration is in it. I want to share this stuff. I feel like it is natural for me to do this, right? And then as time goes on, as you've become consistent at it and defined a personality and found your own audience, you now start to see the response from the public, which sort of now encourages you towards continuing to create. But if the source of your inspiration is what responses you are going to be able to generate, then it becomes a problem. And that's when people now start to get too edgy in their communication and write things because they are trying to evoke reactions, which influencers have now hacked, by the way. You will see a tweet like, Wumi Toriola is top 3 best actresses in Nigeria. Her performance in her new movie XYZ is top notch or whatever. That guy has been paid to promote that movie, and then he has infused a controversial take into that communication so that it can evoke the reactions. I think those kind of people don't have longevity, and it's more for the people who are in it in terms of what they want to communicate and who they want to communicate it to.
Right. So that makes sense. It's more long lasting and more genuine if it comes from your own, intentions rather than from external validation, essentially. And that makes sense. And
Allegedly.
and that also can help you set the boundaries, because you are creating for yourself or the things that you want to put out there, not necessarily what people are asking of you. That makes sense. There's a question from Tayo that I'd like us to take. So it says, does your personal brand have to be your job? Are we not more than our work? It's an interesting question, and that's for
I apologize completely. Again, my views are very biased because I happen to be leading an organization that is very, very much ingrained into my personal life, right? It doesn't have to be the same for you. And I think it's related to what I said about being inspired versus being not inspired. And it can also be transient in whatever your journey is in life. You might be at the moment where, you know what, for the next 1 year or 2 years that I'm going to spend at this organization, I'm okay just existing in this space. And then, I'll figure out what I'm going to do later. Other people can exist in that space and, okay, while I'm here, I'm going to spend this time curating this other brand for myself. So it doesn't have to be the same for you. It just so happens that, I love my job so much and then I make it a big part of my life.
What is this reaction? I say this one away. They said that Lamba they drop was your personal brand.
I don't know if you did at Greek science, but when you put salt on top of a worm, how does the worm react to it? So in this case, the salt is the truth and Tayo is the worm, right? So he's unable to react positively to the truth.
Voila. This is the brand that you're creating for the people on this call.
They know now. They know me now. Anybody will talk to me anyhow, I'll go collect.
Makes sense. So there's a question in the group, and that happens to be actually my own next question as well. What are the mistakes to avoid? That's my next question.
It's not possible now. How can somebody ask the exact question that was in your head?
I wrote this one down when you're talking. I actually wrote it down, and it's exactly the same.
You're building a brand of lies. Go on.
Following the leader. Now you Joy from Leicester, they doubt me.
What are the common mistakes to avoid when creating a personal brand that is both authentic and sustainable? What are the common mistakes to avoid when creating a personal brand that is both authentic and sustainable? None.
Don't do anything where you want to.
Yeah. If your brand is authentic and sustainable, it will mean that you are actually allowed to make mistakes.
So there is nothing you should not do.
Again, like I said, within the confines of your morality. If your moral is, as in, there's a, I don't know if it's a myth or if it's the truth. There's a tribe in Benue where I'm told, allegedly, that if you go and visit, right? If you go and visit the guy and the man, the couple, the guy gives you his wife to sleep with for entertainment for that night, right? It's unfathomable, right? But that happens to be their reality. That's their culture. That's their tradition. So for you, it will offend your sensibilities. And like, how do they do this and stuff like that? There are places in I think Yoruba land where they eat dogs, right? And it will offend the sensibilities of people who are not from there. Even generally, Muslims don't eat pork, and then when they see people consuming pork, it offends their sensibilities, and so on and so forth. Yeah, thank you. Somebody's backing me up, so I didn't come up with that stuff out of my head. So if your brand is authentic and sustainable, I think the reality will be that you should be able to make mistakes, as long as they are within the confines of your morality. I'm sure many of us on this call know Inyaboyeji.
Mm-hmm.
What is Inyaboyeji's personal brand?
Depends on who you ask.
I want to see a few comments.
Yeah.
Like in general, unbiased standpoint. Me, I should tell you.
now,
Okay, I think that his personal brand is very controversial. he's a controversial guy. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He would, double down on his biased opinion, regardless of what seems to be common truth, right? So, but that's his brand. That's authentically him. So, because you do not exist within the confines of his own morality, you would say things like a common mistake that people should not make is that they should never be dishonest, right? Whereas
That's the brand you're building.
he has not always been like that. Seems to me like he switched to that brand. Yes, it could be whatever, right? Brands can change. So he decides that, Oga, this is my viewpoint. I do not care what you think the reality is. This is what I think should stand as an opinion. And majority, everybody is like, but this guy, you're being unreasonable now. This thing is not true. This thing is not a lie. But you cannot tell him because he's authentically him in the creation of the brand that he has decided to create. What?
It's deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Honestly, so that's my genuine answer to the question. I don't think there are any common mistakes to avoid when you are creating a personal brand that is authentic and sustainable.
So
If the question was
personal brand generally,
how do you create a personal brand that is generally accepted and loved? You've drawn me into the Venn diagram of morality, and I'll tell you things like you have to be truthful, you have to be respectful, you have to be X, Y, and Z. But once it's outside of that and it's what you determine to be authentic and sustainable to you because you can keep it up over time, there are no mistakes to be made. Thank you.
makes sense. So for personal branding generally, what are the mistakes to avoid? You said honesty, truth, generally. Are those the things, or you said that as an
This guy be
example?
like those guys we said to I can jump question.
That's what I say, we never mix them up. That's exactly what you're saying, right? No,
Say
no
what?
mistakes.
Say that again.
So, mistakes to avoid for personal branding generally,
Mhm.
not authenticity. What are the things to avoid? Like, I'm doing a brand now. Don't. What should you not do?
I think also the answer of that question is in the things that we've already discussed, which is basically how to create a personal brand, right? You self-introspect and define who you want to be and determine what your audiences are and stay true to that identity and then be consistent, choose your channels down all the way to monitoring and tracking and stuff like that. The mistakes to avoid would be to not do those and decide to be somebody for everybody, right? And say, oh, okay, I don't have a generally defined personality. I'm just here and there, right? You would then create a brand that is very easily forgettable. If you are not consistent, if you are not deliberate with the way you choose your messaging and be consistent at it, then yeah, exactly. Create a brand that you can handle with the results to your full chest. Oh, okay, this was in response to that. And then you are inconsistent in the creation of your brand. So like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He wrote a couple of articles on Medium, and then we never heard from him again. So it will be the opposite of those. Because what would then happen is that you probably not create a brand that is easy to recall. And then it becomes a waste of your effort.
Makes sense. I think it's my second to last question. That was the dragon. Because in the post on Medium one time and it's abandoned it since then. Sorry, bro. It's beyond people. So my question is, what is my question again? Taya has distracted me. Yeah, so the title is creating a personal brand that attracts opportunities. What are some of these opportunities that a personal brand can attract, both on an individual level and on a business level, like you are? What are these opportunities?
Oh yes, even personally, I can share from my experience. Because I crafted a brand that I used to promote a business, right? The opportunities that I've harvested or gotten from that experience is that, number one, people I've been able to win some credibility even through without having direct interaction with certain people, right? I've seen tweets like somebody just randomly saying, what tool should somebody use for HR and payroll in this Nigeria? And then a random person who I don't know says, I think you should use PaidHR because we know Seye Bandele, he no fit run anywhere. I'm vouching for him, right?
Yes.
So those are just like the benefits of credibility. So you have that top of mind awareness, you have some type of trust and credibility that you did not directly create by way of interaction with a person or a group of people. And some of the times it's even just subtle and hidden, right? We've been in like negotiation with organizations before, and then it comes to the decision makers table, and they're like, oh, we need to decide between PaidHR and this other platform. And then the CEO says, oh, I know this PaidHR now. I know the CEO. I like the guy. Let's go with this guy, right? So things like that can happen. The other thing is that you gradually become an authority in the field that you have chosen to operate or dominate, right? By way of creating a personal brand, I've been invited to come and speak on things that even me, I'm like, how do you people know that I'm good at this thing, right? Today, somebody called me and said, Seye, I need you to come and speak to my leadership team about, being committed to a vision and, being a better professional and things like that. I was like, hey, when did I tell you guys that I'm great at that, right? So it does create some type of authority for you. And then there is even, I think the final one is just the self-fulfillment, right? Especially when you are creating this brand to satisfy a certain type of desire that you have, like, okay, I want to be perceived this way. I want to be known for this thing. And then when you eventually do become known for those things, it is very gratifying to yourself.
Cool. That was very, very insightful. It makes sense. So there are a lot of opportunities that come from it, both directly and indirectly. And there's a lot of indication that it makes sense to do it, because if you don't do it, there's already a perception that you have in people's head. And you have to be deliberate about it. You have to know yourself. I'm just trying to recap the key points that we've gone over. Know yourself. And to be saying, I know Sabi not, I think God beg you. I'm already stressed by this conversation. So know yourself, know your audience, understand your messaging, and the channels that you want to use. Makes sense. And that brings us to the end of like the question that I have. Sorry, my son is part of my personal brand and he just entered this room for whatever reason. Okay, so if there are any other questions, please add them on the group. I have some time to take those. Otherwise, we'll go into the rapid questions round, just random questions that I have to ask Seye. It might not be a part of your personal brand. It might, but we'll find out as we go along. The first one is, you're a part of the Twitter.
Sorry. Please, you need to set the rules. What is rapid question?
I'm just going to ask
I need to answer fast, or I need to answer with one word?
Like, just answer, like, however, as fast as you can, but just answer.
Okay. Let's do it.
Honestly.
Are we winning money? Is it Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Red Star people, are we they will let us know in the comments.
Let's do it.
The first one is very simple. What's your favorite perfume right now? I know that you are part of that Fraghead community. What's your favorite perfume right now?
Clive Christian Blonde Amber.
You posted that one. I think I saw it.
Yeah.
What is the best book that you've read? I was saying no what you talk. Is it Clive Christian blah blah blah?
Blonde Amber. Go and check it out. It's really great. It's 50 ml. The best book I've read, wow, is Catch 22 by Joseph Keller.
Okay, I don't even know that one. Did they wait for you for years? Next question is, what's a B2B brand that you totally love? Like, this brand, I love this brand. That is not PaidHR, of course.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna say that. B2B brand that I really love. Shit. B2B. B2B, that's pretty tough. There are plenty, and unfortunately, they are in the HR and H payroll space.
Of course.
I really love Gusto in America, and I love Hibob in the UK.
Cool. Nice. What personal brands do you love? Not B2B now, B2C consumer products or brands.
Like
What?
persons,
Yeah, no, what B2C brands do you love the most?
Patek Philippe.
Jenny's the poverty is the cause. Jenny is part of the branding. It's part of that branding we're talking about. This thing now, if you buy them, your brand will go up. Just think about the possible potential of this thing that we're talking about. Forget about the money. And I know you get the bar, but buy them. Another question for you. What side of Twitter will you never be caught in? Like I know they near this part of Twitter at all.
Politics.
I guess so. Okay. What's
I mean,
the most
I might become a politician, but not in politics. I will not do politics Twitter.
okay? So you go log out once they don't appoint you.
Yeah.
What is the most unexpected benefit you've gotten from personal branding?
From personal branding, unexpected benefit from personal branding. Shit, is it? I don't even know. But I mean, I think the guys at Forbes came to talk to me to ask about my opinion on the Nigerian economy. Like, me? $1 million from no, I don't have $1 million yet. I mean, I'm worth more than $1 million, but that's your paper money. You are muted, Toby.
Okay. I think you've answered most of it. How do you handle trolls? That one is not even here, but I've been wanting to ask. How do you manage that?
Oh, by trolls you mean haters, right?
if that's your definition of trolls.
I mean, honestly, I sometimes it gets to me, right? Sometimes it gets to me, and depending on the time of day, and depending on if I've had like a couple shots of whiskey, you guys saw people tried to insult me when I spoke about Burna Boy and the girl issue, and some people tried to insult me. Everybody that came collected.
Yeah, no.
But most of the time, I just ignore because these people are faceless accounts. One guy even warned me, one troll, he warned me after I insulted him. It was not like, Seye, you are a known person. I am faceless. You need to be careful. And I agree.
You respect it.
Yeah.
Okay. Question. So I mean, not a question now. Just to wrap up. There are no more questions in here. Okay, there's the last one. I'll take this and I will wrap up. I recently came across a post where an employer warned the recruitment team against hiring candidates with overly polished or highly popular profiles. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, yes. There is again, one of my favorite sayings is everything has context, but not everybody can gain context. There is some truth to it, right? I mean, there's context. What I mean is that in this case, there's context, but not everybody can gain it. So when the guy is saying that, he's saying it from probably his own experience, right? That has helped him come to a decision to know that these guys avoid them. But there is some truth in it, because of what we said earlier about authenticity versus fluff. There is a lot of fluff online because you can easily create a fraudulent character. And by fraudulent, I don't mean somebody that wants to defraud you, just something that is not true, right? So you need to be careful for that. I think what's my own response or my own approach to it is to just create a process that you trust in terms of hiring. I've done my best to do that, but even that is still fails. So as an entrepreneur, once you define or create a process of recruitment that allows you to find the talent that you want to work with you also need to be as proactive in finding out if the talent is serving the purpose for which you recruited them, and be able to take decisive action as soon as possible. So I think the reality or the answer is create a recruitment process that you trust, which is designed to find the talent in the person, whether or not this person has a highly popular profile or overly polished profile. But generally, you should be more careful with such people because there is a lot of fluff online.
So, as somebody that is an employee, that is then packaging, branding themselves and getting popular.
Yeah, if it is authentic, you don't have a problem. The cocoa is how do we determine which one is authentic and which one is fluff?
Makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, to wrap up, what are like 3 things that you think people should take away from this conversation? Like, if you don't remember anything else that we've said in the last over an hour, what are the 3 things that you think this ones just remember them and try to do them?
Number 1 is creating a personal brand is not by force. It's okay to not. But then it's also okay to. Number 2 is don't freestyle it, right? It takes a lot of intentionality. And even the intentionality of designing it to be low effort does not mean it is not intentional. Do you get what I mean? So don't fluff it, don't freestyle it, don't say, oh, okay, my personal brand is to be a food critic, and then you don't know how to criticize food, or you don't know how to criticize cuisine. And it becomes obvious that, guy, you're not authentic, and then you just fail at all the other things that we said are the processes to creating a personal brand. And then the third thing is be aware of what the benefits are of this entire process of creating a personal brand, and recognize when to take the profit, right? You need to be aware that, okay, the benefits, the reason why I've decided to create a personal brand is to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z benefits. And you need to be able to collect that benefit whenever it makes itself available, right? Low touch answer is, for instance, if it's just for self-fulfillment, right? Forget commercial benefits, forget recognition, forget trust and credibility. If it is just for self-fulfillment, you need to be able to realize the moments when your personal brand has given you that result and enjoy it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, guys. We've come to the end of this session. For me, it was very interesting. I learned a lot, and you guys will see me posting stuff out there. Understand it, even if it doesn't follow what I'm doing right now. You've seen this. That's what Seye said we should do. So, thank you very much, Seye, for your time, and thank you everyone that attended. Don't forget, Repstar community, you get a lot more of such sessions, and always very impactful. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
My invoice, oh.
Send them now. Joy from Repstar. That's the email.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.